Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. How are you? Thanks so much for doing this, hey.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Oh, it's great to have you on. I'd seen you on do you know the magic of YouTube? Just randomly I get these suggestions because I like magic. I was like, oh, fucking love magic. And then you came on Penn and Teller and I was like, oh, I'll give that a whirl. I was like, whoa, that is amazing. That was so cool the way you did that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been kind of weird that it keeps coming up in people's suggested videos, and it's not just magicians finding it, but people who just love magic too.
Yeah, that's exactly how I find it because I like magic and I just had seen that it was there and I was like, wow, this is cool. So it was like, what was it like meeting them? Did you meet them afterwards or was it just like the show and
No, because of COVID restrictions, I didn't get any one-on-one time with them.
Oh
There was a
no.
brief period during filming where they had to refilm my reveal, and they were
Oh.
setting up the cameras for that because there's nothing ingenuine about the trick, but they just like things to look clean.
Mhm.
And Teller actually spoke to me and he asked me, "What's on the other side of your cube?" Because he thought that I had made a symbol or something, and it was just a jumbled up mess. So that's the extent of talking to them not on camera I got. So a little
Uh,
disappointing, but maybe next
yeah.
time if COVID's not bad.
Yeah. Are you like really into magic or is it just through like the cubes that you got into, the Rubik's cubes?
So I've always kind of liked magic,
Yeah.
but I never really had gotten too into actually trying to do it. Something I've mentioned before in another interview is I have arthritis, and that's made doing things like
Seen
sleight of
that.
hand difficult. Yeah. So I always got discouraged from doing
Mm,
things like that because I had been interested in magic long before the cube, but the cube finally held my interest enough to want
right.
to pursue that. And then I've seen all this Rubik's Cube magic that I'm honestly not the biggest fan of because it just takes what I do and just kind of uses gimmicks. And I thought, well, why
Okay.
don't I use my real cubing skill with a little bit of magic put in? And that's
Okay.
kind of how I came up with that.
Okay. That's
um,
pretty cool.
so they at least feed off of each other to a degree.
Yeah. How does it? What's it like? Because you're tongue tied here. What's it like speed wise? Which arthritis? My mother has arthritis, and she finds some days she's good, some days she's bad, and certain dietary things help.
Yeah, so I have rheumatic arthritis, and it can make it very difficult some days to use my hands. But when it came to the cube, I definitely wanted to be able to work around that, and the cube kind of helped as a physical therapy, slowly progressing. A comparison I use: most people, when they learn to play an instrument, it sounds terrible at first,
Yes,
and
I know all
that
about
can be
that.
discouraging. So for me, that would be very discouraging if I was trying that. But for solving a Rubik's Cube, whether you do it slow or fast, you're still solving it. So even if your
Mm.
hands decided to not function, you can still be satisfied with some sort of end result.
Oh.
Um, but it can affect my day-to-day life. Sometimes I get some really nasty flares and I don't feel like getting out of bed, but you've got to anyways.
Yeah.
So people are amazed when I tell them I have arthritis, and it's like, well, I was born with it, and yeah, I can do the cube, but it doesn't mean everything else is easy.
Yeah. How do you think? I know it's a weird one because you were born with, so you don't know. Do you think it's worse get being born? Because I know you can, it's all you know, or is it worse getting? I know that's an odd question, but sometimes we deal with things if we're born with them better. Not that they're good to have, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah, I have a relative who later developed arthritis,
hmm.
and I think I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I think it was worse, developing it later because they weren't
Right.
always used to that pain, and they developed it as a young adult versus being an older person. So it was very very sudden onset. So that's
Mm.
just my view on it because I don't know any different, but if you know different, that's probably discouraging.
I seen in that interview you said that the doctor said you would never be able to walk.
Yeah, that was the prognosis. And from
Crazy.
what I understand, people who, kids who were born with it back in the 30s, 40s, and even 50s were just thrown into wheelchairs and told, have fun and not
Yeah.
really able to do much. But I don't think anyone in my family would accept that as an answer, especially
Yeah.
not myself.
Yeah, for sure. It's great that you've just powered through and, not let it stop you. Because, some people, you can have the tendency in life to kind of go, kind of not give up, but you know what I mean? There's that kind of just let it
Yeah.
take your life over. And that can be difficult, with anything like, mental health problems. I mean, I've had mental health problems and, you can just give up and just go, I'm tired of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, there can be so many obstacles. I just like to try to encourage people to fight past them.
Mm.
There's a magician who I was speaking to, and he must be maybe in his 30s. He got into a terrible car wreck and has been so discouraged that he can't do any sort of balloon work, when they make
Oh,
animals out of balloons or any sort of magic like that. But I was trying to encourage him to be able to attempt to fight through that because you can find different ways
yeah.
to work around if you really, really want to. Doesn't mean you won't have bad days, but it means that you can still have those good days.
But you probably can work around things a lot because you've got a really good mind. Like you can tell your mind is like really good compared to mine. People are like saying, I'm good at quizzes, and people are like, oh man, you're intelligent. And then I see what you're doing, I'm like, nah, no, I'm not.
Nah. Well, thank you for your kind words, but I mean, I try to have a good attitude going into anything, whether it be physical or mental. But I don't. I just think you need to be positive about it. Doesn't matter if you're super smart or not.
Yeah. So like the cube is solving the cube. I tried to find my cube all weekend and I don't know where it's gone. Someone probably threw it out somewhere. I was like, oh no, I wanted to show you thing. But anyways, is it a lot of like algorithmic things involved with the way to solve them quicker? I'm sure it's hand stuff and algorithms.
Yeah, so it's definitely a mixture of turning consistently, because you don't just want to turn super fast, pause for 5 seconds, and turn super fast again.
Okay.
And then memorizing the right algorithms. When you first learn to solve a cube, you really only need about 7 algorithms, and that'll get you to maybe a minute or two, maybe a little bit faster if you definitely turn faster and that sort of thing.
Mm.
But to get down to about 15 to 20 seconds, you only need about 110 algorithms. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it truly isn't when you think of other people knowing, thousands of them. I think I know maybe close to 1,000 across various puzzles. That's always the estimate I give, but
That's crazy.
100 isn't as bad.
That is crazy.
But the thing, there's also this misconception that you need to be good at math to do the cube, and that's just not true. I've seen people who study the field of math related to the cube called group theory, and they can't do it. They're trying to use all this theory stuff instead of what's practical.
Right.
And they need to just stop with that sort of thing and just look at it piece by piece, not using this, complicated algorithms.
Yeah. Math is a weird thing because, like, I am terrible at math, but I'm good at music. And music is very mathematical and you could say algorithmic because you're essentially adding things. When you're adding key, I know like that's taken away the purity of what people would say, oh, it's a Spurs thing, but you are adding, you're adding and subtracting and you're doing all this stuff. And so math is a weird one for me because I'm good at music and terrible at math, but yeah.
Well, I'm the exact opposite. I'd say I'm decent at math and then terrible at music. You don't want to let me near any instrument. Yes.
Really? Okay.
Well, one of the aspects being the arthritis. And now I'm sure if I really put my heart and mind to it, I'd be able to overcome the arthritis obstacles. But I just have no sense of rhythm or tone or anything like that. So it's just not going to happen.
Well, you have got a good, you can like memorize 1,000 algorithms and I can't. So everything balances itself off, doesn't it?
It'd be too much power for one person to be good at both. I'm sure there are plenty that are, but
you'd be like a superhero. Get in a Marvel movie or something like that.
Stanley Superhuman. That used to be a show.
What? Oh yeah, I watched that. I wasn't mad about it. I was like, it was okay. Okay. Did you like it? Did you see it?
I thought it was all right. I only remember watching it as, maybe a young teenager or something like that. Vague recollections of it.
As a teenager, so how old are you now? Like, that's only a few years old.
I am 24. Wow.
You're so young. I'm so old. I'm jealous. Like when you must be really good at math. You have to be good at math for doing what you're doing. You constantly at nighttime because I know for me, like I dream of music. Do you dream of algorithms and stuff, or think of them?
Yeah,
constantly?
there definitely are occasions where I dream of algorithms, and if I remember, I will try them the second I wake up. There used to be a point in time where probably I'd always fall asleep with a cube in my bed. Not quite that bad anymore.
Wow.
But I definitely do think about it. And I've tried to challenge myself to be able to do an entire solve in my head, without even seeing a cube at all. Mm-hmm. And I've not quite done that, but I can get to a pretty far point, I think. It's just after a point, it becomes difficult visualizing the entire cube.
Right.
Instead of just the three faces that you can see of the cube.
You don't play chess by any chance, do you?
I used to play chess pretty prolifically, and I liked it. I'm not very good anymore, but it can still be fun on occasion to play with my brother or cousins, that sort of thing.
Because, it's you must be really good at memorizing things. You have to be good at memorizing. For chess, I play a lot of chess. It's the memorizing of where you're going and everything like that.
Well, that's funny you say that, because I never memorized a single opening when I was playing chess.
Really? So you just winged it?
Yes, it was all winging it. If I took the opportunity to have probably learned a bit more properly, I could have probably been better. I wasn't a grand player, but I was above average, I'd say. But as for memorizing things, I love memory sports, which basically means memorizing long strings of number for fun, or memorizing decks of cards and that sort of thing. That's what makes me happy.
Have you ever seen the Randy documentary? That magician.
No, I've not seen documentary about him. No.
It's an amazing documentary. It was out a few years ago. You'd really like it. He's an amazing. Some of those guys, when you see what they're doing, especially Houdini. Those tricks that Houdini did, they're so, even by today's standards, they're quite ingenious in their own ways. I know, in magic, there's is there that code thing? Is that really true? The magic code where magicians they tell each other things, but you can't really tell them to everyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that to a degree. When I, for example, was first coming up with my full list trick, I was very open about it to my magic club. Mm-hmm. Who was all a bunch of, older gentlemen, very few young people there. And no one said a word about it, but I refused to tell my family. I also refused to tell them the result of the show, whether or not I fooled them.
Oh, you didn't tell them? So they had to watch it?
No, I didn't tell anyone.
Wow. When they said stuff to you, they speak in kind of code. Can you automatically, what they're saying?
Yeah, there was definitely a key word in there that Penn said that definitely clued me in that he knew how I did it. But in reality, even if you don't agree with that, you're told in part of your contract that you have to agree with it. Even because there are sometimes not native English speakers who might not understand the code or other various things. I happen to understand it right then and there on stage.
Right.
From what I understand, other people, they might understand hours later or never at all.
Right. So did you fly to Las Vegas? It's Las Vegas to do that in, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's in Las Vegas at the Rio Hotel, I think it is. I should know that better.
Okay. Were you nervous? Or were you kind of quite composed? Or?
I was definitely nervous leading up to it. You do an entire dress rehearsal right before you're actually properly filming it.
Mm.
And, that went fine. In fact, it went so well. I thought, oh, did I just, do my perfect performance without Penn and Teller there?
Oh no. Oh no.
But then, they drag you backstage again. Well, they don't drag you, but they put you backstage again. And I just remember my mouth going super, super dry.
Oh no.
And I'd asked for another bottle of water, and someone said you can have room temperature or room temperature. I don't know why that joke sticks out in my mind, but I wanted room temperature. So that worked for me. I downed this bottle of water to try to, not have such a dry mouth. Then I'm put back on stage, and Penn says, "Hi, Sydney," just off without filming. And then they just call action, and I just was like, "Oh, nerves got to go away. You're just going to do this and do it right." It was, I didn't second guess myself on anything. I just went with it. It's not to say I didn't, feel like breaking down afterwards, but during the performance itself, it was fine. It's just after that, you've still got to talk to Allison. So you can't hang on to the fact that if you did something wrong, that, you can't just, be frustrated about it. You've still got to be on and happy and thrilling.
Yeah.
So in short, I was nervous, but I tried to not let it affect me. And I don't think it shows. At some point you can see my hand shaking, but it was after I'd already done the cube work, making the card on the cube.
Right. No, I thought you came across really professional. It was.
Well, thank you.
It was really. When I seen it, I was like, "That is just so cool." I could never do that. I was like, "That's so cool." But that's the kind of the fun of things, when you think about it, when there's things you can't do that you see in other people. There's just an enjoyment out of that, and you're like, "Man, how did they do that? I wonder how they do that." And how you think of how they got to that point, how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. There will be times, and no examples coming to my mind, but you'll see someone do something cool, and you'll be like, "That's amazing." They'll be like, "Oh, that? I do that every day." It's like, "But you're incredible."
What's your fastest time to solve the cube?
At home, I think it's 4.27. I have the photo somewhere on my Instagram. And then in competition, I want to say it's 7.48 seconds. I should know that off the top of my head, but of course I don't.
That's pretty cool. Does it get uncomfortable when people go to here to solve a Rubik's Cube for me? Do you kind of go?
No, I'm used to it.
Oh, are you? You're kind of like, you could just grab one now and just do it like that. Is it that easy for you, or do you have to kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to think about it at all. And in fact, sometimes when I'm thinking less, I can get better times. Not to say that I should be watching a movie and having a conversation while doing it, but if you go into sort of an autopilot, you can be faster. I don't have to think about it.
Do you remember the first time you tried to solve the cube? How did that go for you, or was it quite easy?
So I actually have a memory, is I didn't properly start solving the cube until I was 14. I have a memory of owning one briefly when I was 8 years old, but I don't remember actually playing with it. And then a little bit later on too, a keychain one. And I remember not really knowing much about that. And it's just the cube was trying to get to me already. It wasn't until Christmas of 2011 that my brother and I got these really cheap cubes in our stocking. They were from the Dollar Tree, and had no interest then. But come summertime or early spring, I was bored out of my mind, and I had a computer, and I thought there's got to be some way to solve this.
Yeah.
I remember trying to watch a YouTube video. It didn't work for me. So I ended up looking up a written tutorial, which resonated with me a lot more. And maybe about 2 to 3 hours later, I had actually managed to solve it. And I wanted to immediately do it again. And then I went and showed my brother, who said, "No, you didn't actually do it." So of course that got me thinking, oh, I need to prove him wrong. So I wanted to keep practicing. And eventually I memorized those initial algorithms, and I solved this one cube until it literally fell apart.
Wow.
It wasn't a very good cube. And then I took my brother's cube that he got from his stocking and did the same thing to that cube. And then finally I was able to get a regular Rubik's brand cube. So to answer your question, no, I didn't just solve it right away. It took hours. So that's normal. That's normal for everyone.
So the type of cube, cheap ones are probably bad because they don't have, I suppose there's magnetics in some of the cubes. Magnet, sorry.
Well, the ones that you'd find at places like the Dollar Tree, yeah, they're cheap. I believe Five Below has actually a decent one, but you can tell because it's like stickerless and it's smooth enough, and obviously under $5. Reality, most cubes are pretty cheap, and you don't need a good one to be fast. My main cube only costs $12.
Right.
You can get ones that cost over 100, and I know some people love them. I'd never spend that much on a cube like that.
Yeah. How many types of cubes are there? I seen you had like this one cube that was like tons of like little squares. What's that cube?
Well, the ones that are still cubic, n by n, or number by number.
Right.
The one I used on the show was a 7x7, and you can get them as commercially, I think, as big as a 17x17. There might be a bigger one for sale now, but that was the last I checked that you can actually buy. But there are thousands of different twisty puzzles. There's actually a twisty puzzle museum online that you could view and see so many different kinds. They've done a great job documenting them all.
Are you into those kind of I've got one of them somewhere. They're like these wooden things and you have to they're crazy, man.
No, I don't like those at all, if I'm being frank. I have been given so many of those puzzles for gifts, and I give them to my brother. He likes those kinds of puzzles. He's good at, it's putting those sorts of things together and taking them apart. For me, they're just, no, I want to throw them in the trash.
Yeah, they're quite mad. I got one and I just got angry with it. I was like, oh man, I can't do this. What the hell? I'm too stupid to do this. They're cool. I like the idea of them, but in practice, that's probably like a no. So when you were young, right, and your arthritis was bad, did you learn more? Obviously, you're kind of using your brain more than just physically, or were you constantly absorbing different things like math and science and things like that?
Yeah, I think that there is some truth that not being able to do as much physically probably did help my mind and how much I learn to a degree.
Do you think? Oh, sorry. Go on.
I was going to say, but I've just kind of always been interested in exploring all sorts of topics. They just happen to be good for your brain, quote unquote, I guess.
do you do those Rubik's cubes competition, the speed cubes? I've seen a documentary on that before, not so long ago.
Actually. Yeah. I have been to, I think, 23 competitions, maybe 22, and I have 9 gold medals.
Oh wow,
yeah.
that's impressive. Wow.
Thank you. And I've been competing since 2013. And I haven't competed since 2019, which is a little disappointing, but I do enjoy competitions because of the community of people that you meet. It's satisfying to be able to win a medal and win a little bit of money here and there. Yeah. But it's more about meeting the people there.
Is the cubing a lot of? Is there much older people or is it mostly young people?
It depends on where you are.
Right.
A competition I went to in France was mostly people who were in their 20s. But in the US, the majority of them are usually about 12 years old.
Oh.
So it really is dependent on where you're at. I remember my sister-in-law, who she's also a cuber. She had only competed in Europe and then stopped at a competition I was competing at in the United States. And she was just blown away by how young everyone was. Yeah. Because most of the European competitions, as far as I know, are just an older age group.
What's the fastest time to solve a Rubik's Cube? It must be like 4 seconds or something, is it? 3 seconds?
The current world record is 3.47 seconds.
That is insane.
Just like it really is.
That's just
you'll have to look it up, but that solve was actually only caught on a security camera.
Oh,
so there's security camera footage of it, which is amazing.
How does that work? Say if you solve it at home and you film yourself and you send it in, what's the verification like that? Can it be very stringent?
Oh, no. The only ones that will be recognized officially are ones done at sanctioned competitions where you have a judge and you have official scrambles. And Guinness actually recognizes the World Cube Association. But in this instance, they wanted to see any footage of it because it was an extraordinarily fast time for this person, the solver who got it. His name's slipping my mind right now. So they wanted to review it, and they also sometimes a delegate, if an official can ask you to reconstruct your solve to see what was kind of going through your head. I've heard of definitely things like that happening. It's just to make sure it was legitimate, and sometimes human error happens, and you might be given a wrong scramble that is easier, and that's not fair to other competitors, so it would have to be disqualified.
All right. So when there's a way to scramble them before you do it. They're not just. Oh right, I didn't know that. So who scrambled them? Just judges and stuff like that.
Competitors do. In more recent years, it's more trusted competitors or people who are officially on staff. It just means if you have a good reputation, usually, and it's every person in the same group that gets the same scrambles. So at small competitions, it's usually, it might just be two groups. So group A gets the same ones and group B gets the same ones. And it's just everyone shifts positions. But at bigger ones, there's definitely assigned staff. And it makes it easier.
Has anyone got caught cheating? I don't know how you cheat. Can you cheat in a Rubik's Cube? I'm just wondering how.
Yeah, there's been many, many cases of cheating. Some of it has been more malicious than others. For example, for blindfolded solving, you used to just only have to don your blindfold. Now a judge has to hold some sort of opaque object in front of you, which is usually a piece of cardstock, because someone was cheating and looking through the bottom of their blindfold, which is so obvious. And I believe in investigating that, they just started holding paper in front of him and saw that he couldn't do it anymore or couldn't do it anywhere near as fast. And yet now everyone has to have that happen just to make sure.
Can you do the blindfold solving?
I can. I average probably about a minute doing the 3x3 cube blindfolded. That includes memorization time, and I've done as big as the 6x6 blindfolded.
How do you how do you actually do that? I'm just curious. How do you do it? Like blindfold? Is there like a way that you feel the cube, or is it just like when you change it, the algorithms of changing it?
So you're only solving one piece at a time, and you start with, one piece and then see where does that go? And then what piece was in that spot? And you're just making kind of a long cycle of pieces. So you could imagine kind of it like, those investigation maps you see on TV shows that's stringing around. Imagine that, except with cube pieces until you're back to point A.
That's a lot. When I used to do the cube, I remember I used to try and get like one line up first, which is probably completely wrong way, and then the other one, and then we're like, oh damn, I'm stuck here. She just gets stuck. Total wrong way to do it, but you're like, I've nearly got it, and then you're like, oh no, I can't get it, and then you change that and you're screwed. You're like, oh no, and then you're back to the start. How do you figure out which? I know there's online they can tell you like certain things, but did you figured these algorithms out yourself? You didn't really. I know you've seen stuff online, but all the other algorithms, like the 1,000, have you just through intuition or through just doing them figured them out?
There's definitely a good portion of them I've just memorized because they're good, they're quality ones, they've been used for years. When it comes to solving other puzzles, I refuse to look up a tutorial for them.
That's cool.
I have to take my current knowledge base and think, how can I adapt it? And there are, puzzles that are all different kinds of shapes or will change their overall shape or be cuboids and things like that. So you definitely can discover things on those puzzles that might emulate certain algorithms, or could be brand new. And when I encounter some new puzzles, I'm not memorizing necessarily all the algorithms I use. I'm just seeing how can I, make these three pieces change position, for example.
There's something cooler in that because you actually have to use your own brain. You're not just like you reading a tutorial, and because you don't exercise your memory doing that or your brain. You're just kind of going like robotically just doing everything.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the reasons, like when I do jigsaw puzzles, I don't look at the box. And when I try to describe to the people why I don't look up tutorials for twisty puzzles, said, imagine if you had a jigsaw puzzle that had each number written on the back of it where pieces belonged. You'd still have to find all the pieces and you
Yeah.
probably would solve it faster, but it defeats the entire purpose of it. Now, obviously, I just take it to the next level by not looking at the box at all, but still, it's just a matter of exercising your brain the most.
Could you get given? So you're into jigsaw puzzles. Could someone give you a jigsaw puzzle that has no cover on the box, and could you essentially put it together? Or how long would it take you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do those for speed. I just do them for fun. I mean, I do all the cube stuff for fun, but I don't like try to, take apart a jigsaw puzzle and put it together fast again.
Right.
I mean, maybe it takes like 8 hours for a 1,000-piece puzzle. When I buy a puzzle, I'll look and be like, oh, that's a cool Pokemon design. I like it, and I like the end result, but then I just throw away the box when I'm solving it, if that makes sense. Trust me, I'd love to be blindly given a jigsaw puzzle. I have no idea what it is, but I'd probably get one of Rick Astley if that happened.
They should do those, like just a blank thing and you don't know what you're buying. They'd be quite... I'm sure there's some sort of jigsaw puzzle quiz society out there, is there? There has to be. Speed.
I guess. I honestly have no idea.
There's like things for everything. Do you you obviously teach solving Rubik's cubes?
Yeah, I have several regular students. Usually the youngest ones I get on Zoom are about 8 years old, but I also teach people who are in their 50s and 60s. It's really a sport for everyone. And along with doing those private lessons, which are just coaching people on how to get faster or exploring a concept they like, I also will give lectures and host workshops to bigger groups of people.
That's cool. Did you get more of an influx of people during COVID? Because everyone's at home and they're like, buy now Rubik's Cube.
Somewhat. I mean, it's not exactly the easiest to find me. I've seen some people organically find me from Rubik's Cube lessons online. It's just kind of hard to get that keyword in there. But I guess there was a minor influx of people. It was mainly from some of these math places I was doing lectures for. They'd find me from that and then be like, oh, I really like that workshop you did. I want to get more of you. So COVID kind of helped, maybe just meaning the fact that I didn't have to go anywhere. But I'd still prefer to be doing it in person.
Yeah, the COVID obviously affected the competitions and stuff like that. I assume.
Yeah, it still is affecting them. So many states have these rules about gatherings and stuff, and now competitions, the registration fills up so quickly. I've not even bothered.
Right.
It's just it opens up and it's filled in 5 minutes.
That's the thing about the US. Every state is almost like their own country because of so many laws. Whereas, like, I'm in Ireland, just like the one country is, it's like you go to different counties, it's the same. Where are you in America?
I'm in South Carolina, 2 states above Florida. That's what I always tell people.
And Florida's pretty open. Like, they've opened nearly up everything in Florida.
But I'm just still 2 states above Florida, though.
Right. So it's completely different.
No, I mean, most everything's normal and opened up here. I can't say I've noticed that much being different, other than people still wear masks, which is great. That's awesome. That if they want to do that. Otherwise, it's not that different.
Yeah. If I asked you to solve a Rubik's Cube right now, could you do it? Without putting you on the spot?
I could do that, yes.
Would you do that? It's my sly way of that. Oh my god, this is so cool.
Is that mixed up enough? I mean, people who are listening to this won't see it. They'll hear it.
Yeah, well, they can see it online. Yeah, that's grand. I'm no expert, so I'm just going to go, yeah, sure, that's perfect.
Okay, all right. Well, whenever you're ready. Do you want to give a countdown, make it dramatic?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Can you talk while you're doing it? I'm not putting you off.
I can absolutely do that.
That is so cool. This is crazy for me. I'm just like, I have no idea how you're doing that. Oh man, that is so cool. I have to clap that. That is just so.
Oh, thank you.
That is so. That's so good. How is there a starting point doing it? when you get the cube and I'm sure I'm using the wrong vernacular, but it's muddled up. Is there a starting point from where you start that you go, I'm going to go from that point to that point to that point to point? Is that the way it works?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely very linear in that way when you're speed solving it. I start off solving just I plan out at least my first 4 pieces, which is kind of to make a cross or a T shape on the cube. And then sometimes hopefully 2 more, which is, it just depends on how easy the scramble is or how I'm feeling. And then when I'm solving those first 4 to 6 pieces, I'm planning the next 2 and then the next 2. So I want to always be one step ahead.
Ah, do you think that everyone could solve a Rubik's Cube? Not fast, but quite fast.
Oh. No, I think anyone could. Yeah, absolutely. In at least 5 minutes. Why not? It can be straightforward.
5 hours? Is that okay for me? 5 hours.
I mean, for your first solve, why not? First solve, you can take ages. It took Erno Rubik about 3 months to solve the cube after he made it.
I was going to ask you that, like, what was his times? You'd think he'd be unbelievable at it.
No, he is not fast at it at all. No interest in speed solving whatsoever.
Wow.
Which is weird. When he invented the cube, he at first thought it was impossible to solve, even though he knew because he had started it from a solved state that it had to be possible. He just didn't know how to approach it.
Right. It's such an ingenious thing when people just they make something that you're like I always think the piano. How did someone ever make a piano? Like, it's crazy for me. And I'm sure the person who made the piano was probably not very good at the piano. Just like Rubik's wasn't very good at the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, because you got to look at most inventions are to solve a problem or make something easier. But for something like, the piano or the Rubik's Cube, those aren't really helping people day to day.
No.
At least not in the sense that a washing machine is.
Yeah. Well, piano's helped me many times. More than the washing machine, maybe. Do you know why he invented the Rubik's Cube? Was there any, or was he just like wanted the history of it? Would you be well in depth in the history of Rubik's?
Yeah, I know a fair amount of the history. So he made it for his architecture class. He was a professor of architecture,
yes.
Somewhere in Hungary, and he wanted to prove to his students that a structure like the cube would be possible. And because of how the pieces are gripped together and the way the core moves, he didn't think it would be at first, to be honest, but then he was able to actually make it possible. So that's why he invented it, for his students to be able to practice.
It's from an artistic point, it's kind of beautiful because I love anything with colors. There's just something, like, it's become like an iconic design. Everyone knows what a Rubik's Cube is. Like, when I was a kid, they were really popular. Like, you would see Rubik's Cubes everywhere. It's kind of died down a lot now, but definitely when I was young. I don't know, when did they come out? The 80s?
It was invented in 1974, but it really hit its peak popularity around 80.
Okay, well, I wasn't born then, but I remember in the 90s, they were quite popular.
It's gone through waves of popularity. Definitely gone through waves.
Right. Yeah. What's the wave like now? Is it?
I mean, there's a definite surge of people who are interested in the speed solving side of it, and the information is more prolific than ever as to how to do the cube. So I feel like that there are definitely a lot of people interested in people who very quickly get fast, as opposed to back in the 80s, you didn't really have many options to learn except using your own brain power.
Yeah.
There were some published books, but I guess if you were a kid, then good luck getting your parents to buy you a Rubik's Cube and a book.
Yeah, you get one or the other. That's the thing, though, isn't it? The internet has kind of, whereas you couldn't learn certain things years ago now, techniques wise, like we'll say for a guitar, we'll say now you can have you see these people who are incredibly talented, whereas years ago you might seen a specific small few because they knew things, and now people can learn so much that it's almost like there's a lot more talented people at a high level of doing things. Is it the same with Rubik's cubes solving or
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, after a certain point, like the cubes themselves all became about the same and all about as good as each other. But the information, was more refined, and you get people coming into it that in just a few months' time can get under 10 seconds. And that's
Mhm.
just absolutely insane. Because like I
Wow.
said, it's all there. Um, but it wasn't until actually about the late 90s that information actually was available online for the Rubik's Cube, by a woman called Jessica Friedrich, who actually published a whole bunch of her information
Wow.
online.
Wow.
And I had a chat with her in 2020, and she was telling me that when because she's from the Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic. I'm not sure which is called now.
Czech
She would see
Republic.
people. Yeah, some of the old cubing books I have still call it Czechoslovakia. So
I prefer the name Czechoslovakia. It's more cooler. I like it.
yeah, I sound more impressive saying that.
Exactly.
But no, in any event, she'd say that she'd see people all over with Rubik's cubes on the bus and on the train, and she'd walk up to them and say, "What algorithms do you know? Here's what I know," and just physically exchange information. And I think that's amazing. And then, like I said, eventually at some point, she just put a whole bunch of this information online, and it was kind of a rudimentary form of the method we use nowadays. The method we used to be called the Friedrich method.
Right.
But the name did change a couple of years ago.
Oh wow, that's so interesting that she would just say to people like, "What algorithms are you?" And they were like, "What?"
But she said it was so prolific there that you couldn't not find someone, and it just made sense to learn what they had because you didn't have the internet. Like, why would you waste that opportunity?
Yeah, that I've noticed. I don't know what it was the same for you, but I think the internet, as great and all as it is, it's definitely changed my attention span. Whereas, when I was a kid, we grew up. I don't know. Are you old enough to even remember dial-up internet?
Yes, I actually do. I remember AOL dial-up because my mom would let me play Pop It on her AOL account after school, and I remember sitting waiting for it to load.
Was it? Because we were only allowed to go on after 6 o'clock because they charged you more money. It was like it was this penny or cent a minute after 6. You couldn't go on before 6.
I don't remember that. I definitely remember we had dial-up, but I don't think it was being charged that much. I just remember it took 20 minutes for AOL to load a game.
Right, yeah. Crazy.
And it was when you were still clicking on that AOL symbol as your complete browser.
It's crazy. But it is like I went sidetracked, but like I think the internet has caused a spike in kind of our brain's ADHD function. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it makes people become better quitters.
Right.
Because if you want to get interested in something, I think whereas previously you had to buy a book or a video on it, and really you invested a lot more time and effort in that way. Now, if you're interested in something, you can buy the tool and then look it up on YouTube and then quit if you don't like it. And I think that that's made a huge difference for people being able to get more interested in some hobbies.
Yeah, I read somewhere that humankind are collectively more intelligent than we've ever been, but individually not. We're kind of like the Borg off Star Trek now, where we're like collectively more intelligent, we're not. I think that's due to kind of just our patterns with our phones, and we're constantly bombarded with images where it's like Instagram or social media and stuff like that. And I think that does affect the way our creativeness, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And social media really thrives off of people getting that short dopamine, rush of pleasure versus the long game of actually, learning a skill or investing your time in something. People don't necessarily want to do that.
Yeah. Why did you? I know when you got a Rubik's Cube as a present, but
Yeah.
why do you think you took to it so much?
I still don't know to this day. I mean, I already mentioned before, I did own 2 cubes before I actually got into it. I just maybe I just wanted to be boastful to my brother to show him that I had done it.
Yeah.
Or it just hooked my interest. I really can't describe why I gravitated so much towards it. Because from the time I first solved the cube, about 3 months later, I got down to about 20 seconds. And at the time, I'd say that was pretty good, that kind of rate of progression. Now people can get down to 10 seconds in 2 months.
Oh.
But it was really just me and the cube. I didn't really have any friends who were doing it or anything like that. So it's just, and I wasn't as prolifically online. I was
Right.
14 and I had a laptop, but I didn't see myself on social media 24/7.
Okay.
So I think that makes a difference.
And how many hours a day would you when you started? Because obviously now you don't need to practice hours because you know all the algorithms and stuff like that. But when you started, like how many hours a day were you doing?
Oh, definitely easily over 8 hours, especially in
Wow.
the summertime. I remember like in the summer of 2014, I was going to attend my first national championship, and I practiced one puzzle called a Mega Minx just for hours and hours a day because I wanted to get better and faster at it. And I don't know. I mean, I probably ended up killing my fingers doing it. And, at that competition, I got 7th place in Megaminx at the national championship. And I thought, oh, that's fine, but I want to do better. So come the next summer, I was going to attend the next national championship. And I kept practicing that puzzle again and again and again. And I also learned line solving for the 4x4 and 5x5. So I was also doing those in addition to this. So it was just hours upon hours. I mean, I had sat down and done the math, and I think I've spent well over 25,000 hours practicing, maybe a little bit more. And people say that's insane. It's like, well, when I was a teenager, not working, you can invest that kind of time.
But it's a good way to like, if you're to look at, I know for myself, if I've done up all the hours that I've done wasted doing nothing, like just watching crap on TV or even going on social media, it's probably astronomical. So doing something is way better for your brain. And, it just, we feel better when we actually kind of do things as opposed to not. Even though our brain at times are like, no, don't do that. Just chill here and eat chocolate and don't do
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll feel better at first when they start scrolling through, Instagram, but then they'll a few minutes later probably end up regretting that choice, but not wanting to make a difference. Actually, kind of at the end of last year and definitely the beginning of this year, I was really looking at my screen time for some of these apps, and I put limits on it and then eventually deleted them because it's just like, wow, if I could spend an hour scrolling through Instagram or Reddit, I could do something else. Let's put more functional apps on my phone. And that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
I can have a better than now attitude and saying everyone needs to do that. It's like not easy at first.
No, it's hard, but it's our brain. Our brain is getting that instant hit. So you constantly get triggered to kind of go back. Like I have OCD, and with OCD, it's like people think OCD is, you like turn light switches on and off, but it's not that. It's like you get really bad intrusive thoughts and then you do something to kind of get rid of it, but you're stuck in this cycle of like when you do something good, your brain gets acknowledgement, so it keeps giving you those thoughts, so you keep doing it. So it's such a weird, our brain is such an odd thing, and I don't think we fully understand everything in our brain that we think we do.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that 100%. And some habits are just so difficult to break. I mean, it's just as hard to start a new habit as it is to break one, I think. Because when it's something good, your brain doesn't want to start it. But if it's bad and gives you that immediate pleasure, of course you're going to.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Do you want to like be the fastest cube solver, or is that kind of something you're not interested in?
There was definitely a point in time when I was interested in maybe trying to get, a national record or a continental record in particularly the Megaminx cube because that's the one I consider myself the best at. Um, and there was a point where that would have been possible. I think it's still possible, but I mean, like, really doable. The problem is there weren't enough competitions around me, and I
Hmm.
wasn't, going out of my way to go to enough. And after a point, it just became too far out of reach. And, I got busy working and got busy with this or that. Um, and I just decided after a point, well, rather than wasting my time, quote unquote, doing this, why don't I teach people instead?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how my interest has shifted, because now when I'm practicing or doing stuff related to the cube, it might be, sometimes it's still just for fun, but other times it's, I'm putting together a lesson plan for someone, or I'm trying to work out how it would be better to teach this, or making presentations more clear.
Has that affected the way you actually solve cubes now? If you're kind of, because sometimes if we think outside of our own things or needs, we kind of not invent something, but we kind of think of ways of stuff we never would have.
It's definitely has changed my approach to things. And sometimes it will make me stop for a second and be like, hey, you're not doing that the best way. Why are you telling them to do it that way, but you're not doing that? So there's that. But even before I started properly teaching the cube, one of the ways I would teach myself is I would pretend I was teaching someone else for that very reason of seeing what am I doing wrong. Um, and I think for most things, you don't truly understand it yourself on the deepest, most 100% level until you can teach it to someone else.
Right.
Um, and, I still feel like I have tons to learn about the cube, but I feel like, teaching it has helped me learn more, at least in certain aspects.
Have you ever encountered a student who was like a savant that just was like, boom, just straight got it?
Well, I always think all of my students are always sharp and intelligent, and they just gravitate towards that. But I'll say that about anyone. Anyone has a strong point, but I'll see some where they'll just memorize an algorithm instantly, and just be like, how did you do that? They said, oh, I don't know, it's just you told me to do that, so I did. It's like, oh, okay. But then I'll see other ones who might struggle to read the notation and read the algorithms, but their brain will have the spatial awareness to see how the
Yes.
pieces are interacting with each other. And both those are great qualities. And I take that when I find that what someone's strong at and really emphasize it. I mean, we still got to work to build up weak points. So I think all my students are special, and
Right.
a savant in their own mind. I don't know.
That's
I don't know.
cool.
I'm not gonna say any of my students are less than the other ones.
Okay, I was just trying to see, was there anyone that came to you that just had never solved a cube and could just solve it like straight away?
I'm trying to think. Maybe there's been that. There's definitely like people who pick up things faster than others, but I'd say it takes me on average with one-on-one lessons to teach. I teach most people in about an hour.
To solve a cube? Could you do
Yeah.
so? Wow, that is so cool. Wow. That's just cool, man. Because I just think when I was a kid going through this Rubik, I think I took one. I think I took the pieces out of it before and put it in, and I was like, "Oh, I solved the cube" to my brother, and he was like, "You know," it's like, "Yeah, man, I did that." Just like totally picking myself up, but I couldn't do it at all. But I'm gonna try. I'm inspired by you to actually go. I'm gonna actually try and learn to solve a Rubik's cube. Is there any pointers you could give someone who's terrible like me?
Well, when you're learning,
Yeah.
repeat each step several times. Sometimes it can be super exciting and you want to just go to the next one. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But if you make a mistake later on, you're going to have to restart. Uh,
Ah.
and just follow instructions carefully.
Mm-hmm.
And if an algorithm isn't working, stop to make sure you're doing it right. Double check the position you're doing it in, and don't get frustrated.
Okay.
So that's just and be patient. That's the biggest thing advice I've got to give people.
Is there one specific algorithm that's kind of like the starting point to solve Rubik's Cube that is kind of the beginnery algorithm, if that makes any sense?
I mean, like I mentioned before, there's about 7 you need to solve a Rubik's Cube. But there's definitely one that's really important, but can be a little annoying to learn at first. And that's one that I have people emphasize a lot.
Okay. Before I let you go, 'cause I've taken a lot of your time up. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. How are you incorporating more of your magic in with the Rubik? Are you still doing a lot more magic stuff, or is that backburnery?
I mean, I still attend magic meetings regularly, and I do some mentalism. I just don't post it online because I want to do some of that for fun.
Ah,
But the two definitely influence each other, because for me, when I'm doing certain mentalism tricks in particular, I want to look at not how can I actually read someone's mind, of course not, but what can I memorize to make that easier? Because I'm not going to sit here and do sleight of hand or switch something out easily, because that's not how my fingers want to work. So if
right.
that makes sense.
Are you a fan of Durran Brown? He's like that English mentalist. Amazing stuff he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has some, fantastic stuff. I always get a little skeptical seeing some of that stuff on camera.
That's the thing, isn't it? When it's filmed, you can do so much, really.
Yeah, and you just got to trust that the performer has the integrity to not use stooges and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I hear you on that. How far are you down the mentalist route of like learning? Have you been doing it for long, or is it something recent?
I've been kind of doing it on and off for a couple of years. I've not like really buckled down and learned stuff, but I know a few tricks, some that use cards, some that use books. And it's just fun. I like to be able to do them randomly. I love impromptu stuff as well.
Right. Can you
Because I think that's
sorry,
well,
can you do that thing of like you're talking to somebody and you can get them to tell them what they're thinking, if you know what I mean, like subtle cues, and they blow their mind and they're like, whoa, how did you know that?
no, I definitely can't do cold readings like that.
Right.
But I've done some where I make someone think I'm doing that when I'm absolutely not. With one impromptu card trick I have, where I have someone pick a card and they don't see it, I don't see it, or sometimes I will let them see it, and I'll say stupid things like, "Your cheeks are getting red, so it's got to be a red card."
Oh, okay.
And you're holding yourself more regally. It's got to be a face card. I'm making it up because I love improv, and it's just whatever will freak them out the most.
Do you love improv with regard to just magic, or like comedy, or anything improvisation like jazz?
I think that improv in general, a class I attended, which I think was one of the best things I ever did as a performer and a speaker, was attend that class. Was just like, it's not about being funny; it's about being impromptu, or improvising, and being able to just go with the flow of it, and not shutting ideas down, but saying yes and.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important. So I just love all aspects of it, and I think it's really helped me in, like I said, lecturing and performing, and even maybe just in day-to-day things too.
Because that's the thing with improvisation, you kind of, it takes you somewhere you wouldn't normally go, because it's like, I'm just going to use from our music perspective. There's certain notes and chords that you gravitate towards because you like them and you kind of know what you're doing with them. But when you improvise, there's certain ways of kind of things that you would never think of doing, and then it brings you in another direction. Do you find that when you're doing magic, or even the cube, we could say?
I guess to a degree. I guess the best example for that with the cube is sometimes I'll like to use a completely different method for solving the cube, just to make my brain think that different way.
That is cool.
It's just about going outside your comfort zone.
Are you working on any like new tricks, magic tricks? Or how long does it take to actually go from the inception of it to the end of it? I'm sure you're tweaking stuff along the way.
Well, I'll use my fullest trick for an example. I came up with that trick the day before the last day to audition for the show.
Oh, wow.
And I was performed it at a virtual open mic on Zoom, and it was a terrible performance. But it was just like, this is the trick. But actually, the early version of the trick used 2 cubes. And I also cheated in that performance. I had a stooge. But I was just like, shoot, I need to get something. I need to have this trick somehow exist so I can send it to the producers.
Yeah.
And it took me forever to make the card on the cube, as opposed to now I can do any card on the cube in about 50 seconds. It must have taken me 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
So, to being able to just do the trick, I was able to do it, just wasn't very good. And then, it definitely is all about refining it. And the producers and the magic expert of the show definitely help with that. If I had been working independently and was told, oh, you've got to make this trick work, I don't think I would have been able to make it as clean as it was.
Yeah, it was. It looked really clean. It was very impressive. I was like, wow, that is just well, and the presentation of it was really well done. And you know what I mean? Because that sometimes you can see people who do magic, and their presentation can kind of let the trick down. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was having a conversation about that the other day with someone, and it's just, you can buy, the most expensive magic trick there is and perform it. But if you're just standing there and just do the trick with nothing added to it, no performance, no storytelling, no gracefulness, what's the point?
Yeah.
But if you can take, a magic kit from like the dollar store and make people fall in love with it because of the way you're executing it, that shows you're a good performer, and that means a lot more.
Yeah.
I think so many young magicians focused on buying expensive gimmicks.
Yeah, for sure.
Which it is a little bit bothersome to me, and it doesn't mean they're bad performers, but I think that they need to really go to the roots of it. Any magic show I've attended, and I've not actually been to that many, but the ones I have been to have usually been magicians who are in their 50s or 60s. They don't actually do that many tricks in an hour-long show. They only do maybe 6 to 10 tricks.
Right.
As opposed to these young people who do trick after trick after trick. And you're just exhausted by the end of it.
Yeah, you're not, because you're kind of not taking in everything. It's like binge watching a show. I don't know how many times I binge watch something. I don't remember half of them. Like, wait a minute, did I see that? No, I didn't. I think our brains, I don't think are made that way.
No, because then you're not able to digest it, and it also takes away from the effect something might have.
True. That's very true.
And you don't get to build as good of a rapport with your audience, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Are you hoping to get back on Fool Us again?
Maybe, it'd be nice. I didn't actually audition for this season, though. So unless they give me a call saying, come up with something, it's not going to happen.
Well, they did say you were the smartest ever musician. So, that's always a good
I don't
want
to lose that title, though. I can come on and make a fool of myself. I've actually been, if I do something dumb, I'll be like, oh, wait, I'm the smartest magician on Fool Us. I was allowed to do that.
Yeah, that can be on your card. Penn and Teller quotes. You can use that. Well, Sydney, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you and get insights onto the cube and everything. I mean, it's far beyond my brain, but it was really thank you so much for doing it and for doing the cube. I'm sorry if I put you on the spot there, but it was cool. That was so cool.
No, that's why I had one right here. I knew it was coming.
I wish I had my cube, because I was like, I'm gonna find this cube and no, unfortunately no. But it was a bad cube though. I remember the stickers were coming off, so Well,
I'll send you a cube. Just give me your address.
Oh, geez. Well, if you do that, I'm going to send you a record. I'll send you a record, and then we can...
Okay, all right, we'll trade.
Okay, cool. Okay, we'll email afterwards. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sydney. I really appreciate it. It's cool to have you on, and I'd love to have you on some other time, whenever. But thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
It's great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This will be up probably tomorrow, and I'll link you up and all that kind of stuff. So,
all right, sounds wonderful.
Great.
Well, you have a good day.
You too. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye,
right,
bye, Sydney. Bye.